shun the cities. And this group especially shunned Jerusalem, come out here to the wilderness. And you might think, why do they come to the wilderness? Especially as many of them were priests and from priestly families. All right? So they're actually a bit well-to-do. They're very scribal. They're nerdy. They're academic and hyper-religious. So why here? Why not, even somewhere like Jericho, which is a very nice resort town, long enough distance from Jerusalem? Well, on the one hand, they wanted to be away from Jerusalem because they believed that the Sadducees, that other group I've mentioned, who ruled the temple, were wicked, and God was going to come and wipe them out. So they wanted to be a safe distance. But there are also all these Old Testament passages that speak of exciting things happening in the wilderness, in the desert lands. And so there's a prophecy in Isaiah chapter 40 that says, a voice of one calling in the wilderness, make straight the paths of God. Aha. So the Essenes seem to have felt like they had a special calling to come out into the wilderness and be those who prepared a straight way for God. So that's what they did. They came out here and lived in these communities. This is probably not the only Essene community, but it's the only one we've found. And they lived here and worked here, slept here, ate here, studied here, copied scriptures here, and, importantly, practiced an entirely new temple ritual system. I know this sounds bizarre to our ear. They play-acted a new temple right here because they were certain when God comes to destroy the sons of darkness, that is, the Sadducees, other Jews who were not as pious as they are, and the Romans, they, the sons of light, would walk over the hill and take over Jerusalem. They were priests after all. So they play-acted their actual rituals out here, ready for the day when they would rule in Jerusalem. Now, in the Dead Sea Scrolls, I should wind back and say, we don't 100% know why the people that worked here and studied here and copied the Old Testament here and produced their own tracts and religious treatises here, we don't know why they stuck them in the caves here. But our best bet is when the war broke out in 66, they thought, let's protect the scrolls and put them in there, thinking that after the troubles have gone, they'd come back and collect them and carry on. But of course, that didn't happen. They weren't discovered until 1948. We don't exactly know how they were discovered. There's a famous story of a shepherd boy throwing rocks into the caves here, looking for his goat, and he threw a rock into a cave and he heard a smashing pottery, and he climbed up and, oh my, here are some amazing scrolls with writing on it, and he took them to an antiquities dealer in Jerusalem, and the rest is history. But actually, that's the story that was told. It was probably a result of a huge industry of finding antiquities. The population knew that there was money in antiquities after 1948. The Western world was all looking for antiquities here, and so they actually were search parties going into every cave because everyone knew you found treasures in caves. And so I'm sorry to spoil the cute story. At least I'll put it this way. The head of the Dead Sea Scrolls in the Shrine of the Book in Jerusalem thinks that story is complete bunkum, and disappointed me greatly when I interviewed him. He just says, no, it was just people searching for antiquities to sell. Either way, very cool, because they have found thousands of documents over that 10-year period, and as I said, they keep on finding stuff even to this day. But they've found multiple copies of the book of Isaiah here, much of the Old Testament, and of course the cool thing about the Dead Sea Scrolls that are copies of the Old Testament is our previously oldest copy of the Old Testament was from the year 900 AD, right? Now the Old Testament is written sort of 800 through to, let's say, 300 to be very flexible, BC, right? But our oldest copy was 900 AD. Like, I'm not very good at maths, but that's a long time. Okay? When we found the Dead Sea Scroll copy of Isaiah, suddenly we have a scroll we know was copied 100 BC. So we just bridged 1,000 years of copying in one find. Unreal. And of course, what they did is they lined the copies of Isaiah up and found that they knew how to copy accurately. So it was very fun. But alongside all these biblical scrolls they found, mostly in Aramaic, some in Hebrew, and a few in Greek, which tells us that the scribes here were fluent in Greek. Some of them were fluent in Greek. Alongside the scriptural texts, they found all these sectarian texts. That is, these apocalyptic descriptions of God destroying the sons of darkness, i.e. the Jerusalem Sadducees, and elevating the sons of light, i.e. them. Okay? So we know what they thought about light. They used phrases that we didn't know Jews used. They had strict laws that even the Pharisees didn't have. Like, one of the rules in the rule of the community, which is like the monastery manual that we found here, that told us exactly how they lived. One of the rules was, if your animal falls into a pit or a cistern on the Sabbath, you shall not assist it. If a man falls into a cistern on the Sabbath, you shall not assist him, because that would be work. Now, this is really interesting because there's an explicit teaching of Jesus that mocks that idea. Who in their right mind, he says, would not assist an animal that falls into a pit on the Sabbath? It is right to do good on the Sabbath. That looks like a direct critique. We didn't know this until we discovered the Dead Sea Scroll. A direct critique of the Essenes, who thought that you shouldn't do any of that work. So they would have seen Jesus as an utter liberal. They washed several times a day. In mikvahs that we're going to show you, we're going to walk past some ritual baths that at least 3 times a day, all of the community here would go down the left side into, like, take your robe off, down into the pool, the mikvah, and then up the other side. And when you come up the other side, you are cleansed. You do that 3 times a day. And you did that especially before meals. They ate together. They ate special food. They were like hyper-kosher eaters. They were so strict in their dietary rules that if someone broke a law of their community, you were banished, and some people would starve. Josephus actually mentions an Essene who was still a strict Essene but had been found out doing something naughty and was banished. Because of the strict Essene rules for dining, he couldn't find any way to eat, and he starved to death rather than eat in a non-Essene kosher form. Right? So they thought of themselves as the true. Sorry, that's not an American phrase, is it? As very strict, pious people. When you joined the community, you had to, by law, according to the rule of the community, hand over all your property and money to the community, so that they could do good, so that they could grow crops, so they could buy scrolls to continue their important work of copying. It would only be temporary, of course, because the sons of darkness were soon to be wiped out, and they would own Jerusalem. So it all seemed perfect. That's who lived here. And we're going to walk through, we're going to see the ritual baths. We're going to think the scrolls that they then did. We're going to walk to the end here. We're going to see, I think it's cave 4 that we see, in which a whole bunch of text, really important. Here, just one portion from the rule of the community, which is the monastery manual. And remember, just in terms of your time frame, this is right in the same time as the Sadducees and the Pharisees and the Zealots. Okay, they're doing their thing from 100 BC right up until the fall of Jerusalem, and then they disappear. But I want you to listen to almost their description of entering the community, their initiation ritual. Okay, all right. Bits are missing, so it'll sound like I don't know what I'm reading or whatever. It's because some bits are missing from the manuscript. The general gist. For the instructor, his life, a book of the rule of community in order to seek God with one's heart and with all one's soul, in order to do what's good and just in his presence, in order to love everything which he selects and to hate everything that he rejects, in order to keep oneself at a distance from all evil and to become attached to all good works, in order to do truth and justice, I was going to say in the American way, and rightness on the earth, and not to walk any more in the stubbornness of a guilty heart like those Jerusalemites, and of I added that a little bit about Jerusalem, and of lecherous hearts. Am I shouting too loudly? I probably am. To not walk any more in the stubbornness of a guilty heart and of lecherous eyes, doing every evil deed, in order to welcome all those who freely volunteer to carry out God's decrees into the covenant of kindness. That's how they thought of themselves. In order to be united in the counsel of God and walk in perfection in his sight, complying with all the revealed things concerning the regulated times and their stipulations. That's their play acting of the temple rituals here. In order to love all the sons of light, each one according to his lot in God's plan, and to detest all the sons of darkness, each one in accordance with his guilt. All those who submit freely to this truth will gift all their knowledge, their energies, and their riches to the community of God, in order to refine their knowledge in the truth of God's decrees and marshal their energies in accordance with the perfect paths, and all their riches in accordance with his just counsel. And all those who enter into the rule of the community shall establish a covenant before God in order to carry out all that he commanded, and in order not to stray from following him out of any fear or dread or testing that might occur during the dominion of the devil. When they enter the covenant, the priests and the Levites, because they actually were made up of priests and Levites, shall bless God, the God of victories, and all the works of his faithfulness. And all those who enter the covenant shall repeat after them, Amen, Amen. And then they were in. And they lived out here, a voice in the wilderness saying, make straight the paths of God. And their hopes came to nothing. But we know about them because of their writings that were found in these caves here. And now we're going to go and walk where they walked. And see where they ate and see where they copied out their scrolls. Any questions?